Welcome, everybody. Me and Dustin have gathered today. We are going to be reviewing a movie we have already reviewed, kind of. Me and him saw Midsommar back in June. I saw it on June 20th. I think you saw it a couple of days later at Regal up in
June
Tennessee.
24th. Yep.
There we go, June 24th. Uh, the IMAX re-released Midsommar, the director's cut for the summer solstice, and we both got to see it. I'll just give my quick thoughts. We reviewed this movie, episode 155, way back when. I love the movie. I gave it a 9.5 then, and it's hard to believe that a movie that's 30 minutes longer is even better. Like it just fleshes out so much more. It it validates Danny's decision in the end even more. It makes you just despise Christian even more somehow. I think if you're going to watch this movie going forward, I would watch the director's cut. I know it's almost 3 hours, but in my opinion, it's worth it. It's even better than the theatrical cut. That's just my opinion. I'm very curious to hear Dustin's opinion. And y'all bear with me tonight. I got a lot of scene by scene, so whew, Lord bear me strength.
Yeah, like you said, I saw it June 24th. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I texted you earlier today, and I asked you if I was even on the Midsommar episode when we reviewed it the first time. I looked, and it was in September of 2021. And at that time, I was distracted. I was preoccupied. I had new love in my life, and unfortunately, I'll own up to it. A lot of things the show included kind of became second fiddle to me. I still enjoyed doing it. I still try to put my best foot forward, but that just goes to show you how different my headspace was because I didn't even remember being on the show, let alone what I said. So if I repeat anything I said tonight, sorry. But that being said, I loved it. I went back and looked at the score I gave. I gave the original cut or the regular cut a 9. And I told you when we went and watched this in June, I like the director's cut more. Like you said, it really drives home the emotional state that Danny's in and validates and justifies not only her, um, well, mostly her decision in the end, but also it just makes it all a more cohesive story and a more understandable story. Um, it's we bitch about runtime on this show a lot. Not just on this show, we bitch about runtime a lot. If we see a movie and we're just texting about it, we're like, God, look at the runtime on that. And then there's movies that are an hour and a half that we're like, ugh, I felt every night, every one of those 90 minutes. This is 2 hours and 50 minutes and some change. And this movie gets better and better every time I watch it. I completely agree. Watch the director's cut. If you haven't ever seen the movie and you're listening to this, like we say, shame on you. Listen or watch the movie, then listen to us. But if you haven't, go watch the director's cut instead of the standard cut.
Yeah, man, I agree 100%. You got any more opening thoughts before you just jump into the scene by scene?
Let's do it.
All right, y'all bear with me. I got a lot to read tonight. The film starts with the entire movie in tapestry form. Ominous folk music as we get winter nature shots. Phone rings at the Arter residence. Danny leaves her parents a voicemail checking in on Terry, saying she sent a scary email. Danny hangs up and stares at the emails on her computer screen, growing more anxious. She calls Christian, asking if he wants to hang out, but he's not engaged with the conversation and casually asks about the sister situation. He blames Danny for giving her sister attention. She says she's lucky to have him, and they say they love each other. She calls a friend, expressing concerns with his voice's tone, and now blames herself for scaring him off. She takes her meds and blames herself more. Mark tells Christian he needs to get off the fence about it and break up with her. Christian is worried he may regret it later, though. Danny calls Christian, and Mark is annoyed seeing it. He answers her call and hears Danny crying violently. Back to the Arter residence, we see that Terry has killed their parents and herself with carbon monoxide poisoning. Firefighters carry the parents' bodies out as we zoom in on Terry's corpse under the computer. Christian makes it to Danny's and he holds her as she cries. The score intensifies as we zoom out the window, watching the snow fall, and we get a title card. It's sunny outside now as we see Danny lying under a big bear painting. Christian checks on her, saying he's going to go to a party for a little bit. Danny says she'll join him, finding out about the Midsommar trip to Sweden. He lies, saying he wasn't sure about going, but they were talking about it. Car ride home, and Danny looks fed up. They make it inside, and the tension is thick, and he asks if she's okay. The two argue over the trip, and he gaslights her, saying he should go home. Danny now apologizes and begs him to sit with her. She asks about his thesis, and he still appears aggravated, causing Danny to apologize again. He sits down saying it's fine, and he asks if she wants to go with him. He says he says he wanted to be a surprise and romantic. This guy is something else. Dustin, what do you think about that first set of
Yeah.
scenes?
He's a real piece of shit. So I love the open with the artwork and the way it transitions to the snowy nature. The transition there looks like a curtain opening for a play. Just Ari Aster knocked it out of the park throughout this movie. We get several good looking shots at the nature before honing in on one house, and it's beautifully shot. At first glance, it just looks like a sleeping couple, but after you know the reality, you notice that they're not breathing. So I thought that was another good touch there. Heartbreaking emails from Danny's sister. And Florence Pugh just absolutely crushes this role. I speak highly of her anyways because I'm in love with her, but she's great not just to look at in this movie. She is a great actress and she kills this role. You really feel the emotions that she's experiencing here. Her facial expressions and line delivery is just elite. And her character is so sad. Like she's so insecure and feels like she's an inconvenience. She just wants to be accepted. Danny is a very well written character. Christian sucks as a character, but it's very relatable. Man wants out, just doesn't know how to do it. I've been there countless times. The tragic scene at her parents' house is really tough to watch. I could not imagine losing both parents and your sister at the same time, especially in this manner. It's a heavy scene that hits you in the feels, and the score is just so unsettling as well. Uh, Super awkward when Danny found out the guys were planning to go to Sweden. You can tell that Christian didn't want her to know, and it's just really well done. It's a very believable scene. And his solution when she wanted to talk was just maybe I should just go home. And Danny ends up apologizing like he doesn't deserve her. Total panic move by him to invite her. He's such a douchebag. It's hard to feel sorry for what happens to him. It's a very emotional open. I'm sold already.
Yeah, we'll touch on that whole feeling sorry for him at the end because the director's cut definitely does not make you feel sorry for him. All right,
Nope.
now we're in the living room with all four guys as Mark asks about the drive to Sweden. Christian tells him Danny is coming upstairs. Mark doesn't want her to go at all, and Danny enters the room greeting everyone. Awkward situation. Mark asks Christian to come read this paragraph, and Danny sits down to chat with Pele. Josh exits the room as the two chat about the crazy 9-day festival. Pele shows her pictures from the festival. Pele tells her he's very glad she's coming. He shows her condolences about her parents' death, saying he can relate. Danny walks away with tears as we transition to her crying in the bathroom of the plane. They're in the car now. Mark complains about the car ride and yaps a lot. Danny gets a text from Amy telling her happy birthday. She asks Josh about the book he's reading, and the group talks about their thesis. Beautiful upside down camera shot of the car driving until the car stops in the middle of a field. Pele is greeted by people of the village. He introduces them as Mark panics over all the bugs. We meet Ingomar, Simon, and Connie, and Danny says she doesn't want to take any mushrooms yet. Christian offers to wait with her, but Mark says they'll have separate trips. Danny caves and agrees to take them earlier than she desired. Ingomar kind of like helps her out and brings her a mushroom tea instead, and they all take their drugs. All right, Dustin, that's the next set. What do you think? There's not as much, but it was kind of a lot of
Yeah.
moving places.
Yeah, I think this is the least amount of notes that I have on any set of scenes, but that's not to say it's not well done. You can cut the tension and awkwardness with a knife when Christian tells the guys he invited Danny to Sweden. And then when Pele starts apologizing to Danny for her loss, it's very tough to watch. His intentions were pure, but it was like reopening a fresh wound for her. And I love how it was shot when she went to the bathroom. We get a beautiful, great overhead shot and then a cool transition to the plane restroom and her emotions, her acting again, top notch. The car ride was another great scene. It's just dude talk on dude talk. And then when she starts talking, you can look at Mark and Christian, and you just see the how annoyed they are on their face. It's progressing nicely. Was this where? Yeah, no, okay. The tick scene. That's the next set of scenes, right?
Yeah, that's up next.
Okay, okay, yeah. I thought I forgot that. But go ahead, because I got something funny about that.
No, you're good. Mark is tweaking, asking what time it is. He doesn't like that the sky is blue when it's 9 p.m. Mark says he's going to lay down and ask everyone to lay down. Danny starts seeing grass grow out her hand and she starts breathing heavy. Danny comes to, hearing Mark talk about family. She goes on a walk and begins to panic. She walks towards a group of people laughing and grows more anxious. She makes it to an outhouse and sees her sister in the mirror behind her. She runs out panicking until it cuts to her sister and parents in the living room of the house. Danny awakes, finding out she was asleep for at least 6 hours. Folk music plays as we get overhead shots of them walking to the community. Mark freaks out finding out Sweden has a tick problem. They make it and are blown away by the community and the people. Their luggage is taken as Pele introduces them to his sister. Pele hugs an elder, introducing them, and he tells Danny he's so happy she's here. Welcome and enjoy, he says as he walks away. The community gathers around a big stage as they're told Happy Midsummer. It's been 90 years since their last big feast. Let's raise our glasses and let our 9-day feast commence. More rituals take place as she shouts, Spirits back to the dead, and food is brought out. They all sit in a specific formation, and an elder stands up singing, giving thanks. Others join in as we see the fire burning and they begin to eat. Josh asks for a translation, and Christian casually thanks him too, drawing Josh's suspicion. Maya joins the crowd as a big dance line forms. Simon brings Connie a drink, and Danny admires that. Maya kicks Christian, and he joins the line dance. Pele seizes the moment to tell Danny happy birthday and gives her a drawing he did of her. She mentions Christian forgetting her birthday. I forgot to remind him, and I hated hearing her say that.
Yeah, yeah, that's tough. Mark freaking out because it's 9 p.m. is hilarious. Man is tweaking, and I just got a good laugh out of him. He's like, "Can we all lay down? Will you lay down? Please lay down." Josh, lay down. Like that was so funny to me. And their mushroom trip was very well done. The effects were great. She sees the grass growing through her hand, like you mentioned, the trees moving funny, and the change in sound when she starts freaking out. Very accurate portrayal. And Florence does another great job acting. Like she's got some serious pit sweat going on though. That was gross. Um, Great overhead shot as they walk through the village. I got a good laugh out of the group fucking with Mark about the ticks. So that's why I want to bring that up because you know the guy friend group sucks, but that's just because we're seeing both sides of the story. Guy friend groups do suck, and the way that they're portrayed in their conversation, like that's very typical. You're like, yeah, man, the ticks are bad here. And his like, my uncle had Lyme. You'd rather die. It sucks. Like that was just funny. The cinematography at the village is great. Just elite stuff. Great framing of every shot, and the set design is fantastic. I can't lie though, I'd be freaked out. It just seems so cult like, but it's their culture, so I do my best to hide my uneasiness, keep an open mind. We see Pele's redheaded sister here, and Christian's fate was sealed. She imprinted on him like Jacob did Edward and Bella's baby in Twilight. I know you get that reference. Uh, Pele's remembering, or Pele remembering Danny's birthday was something else, man. He's laying the groundwork. Christian forgetting, and her saying it's her fault she didn't forget him, or she forgot to remind him. Yeah, that was tough. That's one of the toughest things in the movie to me. That this girl is, she has no self worth, and it's hard to watch.
Yeah, I think the mark and the tick thing is really cool because I know we mentioned in our original show, but that's like Ari Aster is scared of bugs. Like he wore 2 pair of socks over his pants to make sure no bugs got in his pants. I just think that's funny. All right, back to the scene by scene. Josh asks Pele how they support the place as the group's walking around. Connie asks how long Christian and Danny have been together. They give different answers, and it's kind of awkward now. Christian asks about the big yellow building. It's a sacred temple that no one's allowed in. They casually walk past a bear in a cage, and Ingmar shows Connie an interesting set of drawings on a sheet. I'm sure Dustin will touch on what you see in there. Beautiful score plays as the group admires the building and drawings on the walls where everyone sleeps. Pele tells Josh they treat life like 4 seasons in 18-year increments. Danny asks what happens at 72 to no answer as Mark asks about jerking off with no privacy and all the dicks on the wall. Christian pulls Danny outside and gives her a piece of cake with a candle in it singing happy birthday to her. He struggles getting the candle lit as a group of women sing to a baby in the background. He apologizes for forgetting and she blows out the candle. Pele says tomorrow is the big day. First of the ceremonies, at a stupa. They try to sleep as a baby cries all night. Danny observes all the drawings, watching a couple sneak out. The next morning, they're at the tables as girls pick flowers. They begin eating as Mark complains more and checks out the girl from earlier. More singing commences as Mark continues being weird. They all take a shot and music plays as the 2 elders are taken away in their chairs. Everyone follows, except Mark, who goes to take a nap, until it cuts to them all at ground level looking up at a cliff. A woman begins singing and chanting as the elders' hands are cut and they put their blood on a rock. The elder woman approaches the edge of the cliff and Danny begins breathing shakily, growing more and more anxious. The Americans are in complete shock seeing her fall below to her death and her head exploding. Danny zones out as we overhear Connie and Simon freaking out over the ritual. The man leaps now, but chooses the pencil dive, obliterating his legs. He cries out in pain, surviving the fall. The group all shriek in pain as 4 of them approach and mash his head in with a giant mallet. Danny is stoic, seeing this as Connie and Simon storm away furious. Siv consoles them, saying it's a great joy for them to end their lives like this. We give our life as a gesture, she tells them. Ingmar apologizes for not telling them about it. All right, Dustin, that's the next set. What'd you think? This is kind of where the oh shit stuff starts happening.
Yeah, for sure. And I've got quite a bit here. Uh, and then continuing Christian's campaign for boyfriend of the year. He didn't even know how long they'd been together. He sucks. I laughed at, are we just going to ignore the bear? It's a bear. Like, that was funny. And it all makes sense later. The artwork, look, I'm not going to touch on exactly what's in the pictures, but it's creepy as fuck, both hanging outside and all over the walls and ceiling. All I'll say is pay attention to the pictures, folks. There's some stuff in there. The children are watching Austin Powers. That's the single most random thing in this whole movie. The hell was that about? That makes me laugh every time I watch this movie. Uh, his lame ass attempt at saving face about forgetting her birthday was expected, but where the hell did he get that cake and candle? Like, was it just sitting around in there? Go ahead.
No, I was just going to chime in real quick about the Austin Powers thing. I watched
Yeah,
an interview that Ari Aster did. He said that was literally just a gut feeling he had, just to put that Austin Powers line in there.
it's just like, of all the movies throughout history, Austin Powers, like, that got me, that popped me. But yeah, in addition to him just apparently pulling a plate with a cake out of his ass, I know one thing. If I had to listen to a stranger's baby cry all night, I'd be wanting to join the old folks on the cliff. Fuck that. The whole ceremony before the cliff, that's just so unnerving. But again, it's their culture, so I just try to be understanding. But that next part, I don't know if I could be understanding of that. The score is so perfect considering we're about to see two old folks go splat. And the deliberateness of how the scene is paced and the cinematography is just so effective too. And the score going silent right before the first leap. I love how the camera was on Danny as the old woman jumped, and we get brutal gore and effects on the splatter. Really well done. Uh, I don't get, and I'll never understand why the old man jumped feet first, though. Idiot. But it gave us more really good stuff. Danny was just like so numb at this point. She didn't really have a facial expression. The silence, and then the mallet through the skull and the effects, just really brilliant stuff there. This is an insane set of scenes.
God, I love. Fuck, I hope I don't sound too demented saying this, but I love that cliff scene, man. It's just so well shot. It's
Oh,
so
yeah.
bright. It's so beautiful. Then it gets so dark, and then like the score cuts. It's really it's a perfect scene, man. It just makes you feel so uncomfortable.
It's really like, that scene is such a oxymoron. Like, it's so bright and so dark at the exact same time. Or I guess that's not oxymoron, maybe juxtaposition. It's insane because the lighting is bright, but the content is so dark.
Yeah. Christian checks on Danny, but she storms off saying she doesn't need to be here right now. She's crying and full on breaks down, grabbing her chest, falling to her knees. That's a painful cry right there. Christian ignores Mark and enters her sleeping quarters with Josh. He tells him about writing his thesis on the Harga as well. Josh is furious, calling him unethical, lazy, and calls him kind of sad. They continue arguing until Christian says he's doing his thesis here too and is open to collaborate and walks out. Mark is upset they let him sleep through the ritual as Christian walks over to Maya and other women. He asks what they're doing and how many times they've seen the Atastupa and if they have a period of grieving. Pele and Josh talk about the thesis again, and he walks away from Josh. He walks up to Danny, who is packing up, wanting to leave. She cries, saying she doesn't know why she's here, and he has her sit down. He's proud of his culture and offers her some drugs to calm her down. She denies, and he comforts her, saying he knows what she's going through. My parents burned up in a fire, but I never got to feel lost because I always had a family here. Pele holds her hand and asks if she feels held by Christian. Does he feel like home to you? She sits there questioning as we cut to the elders' bodies being burned by the fire. Christian approaches Danny, who is sitting alone in a field. She asks if he was disturbed by what they saw. He says he was shocked, but is keeping an open mind. It's cultural. They ask if they want to join them for a special ceremony. We're by a river as some throw a tree into the water. A horn blows as a man says he heard a rumble. She's still hungry. He doesn't want to risk upsetting their great mother. What else can we offer? A boy volunteers himself as two men grab him and place a rock on his stomach and begin swinging him to throw him into the river as sacrifice. Danny yells to stop, and others join in yelling to stop. Christian is following Danny, saying to stop. She wants to leave. This is weird and backwards. She doesn't want to acclimate. She wants to go. He tells her he's doing his thesis here, and the two begin arguing. He tells her she can leave, but he's staying. Do you not love me anymore? She asks. What does this have to do with this? She says he's trying to pull away, and I'm in denial. He says she's got it all figured out and walks away, but turns around and they argue more about him not doing enough for her in the relationship. The argument gets more intense, and he walks away from her. All right, Dustin, that's the next set of scenes. That's one of the main scenes that's in the director's cut. It's not in the theatrical cut, and I'm sure you'll touch on that.
Yeah, and I don't have a ton on this set of scenes otherwise, but Christian stealing Josh's whole flow bar for bar about his thesis, that's so on par for his character. He's such a douchebag. Josh should have whooped his ass. Harga Hell in a Cell match would have been next on the agenda. More brilliant acting from Florence in the scene where she freaks out with Pele. That's just, I can't give her enough credit for how she portrayed this role. And then, yeah, the ceremony by the water. That's wild. They almost threw a jet in the water with a big ass rock. Then, one of the main differences in the standard and director's cut, like you said, Danny and Christian's argument. He fucking sucks. The hesitation when she asked if he still loves her should have told her everything she needed to know. She's so codependent and just yearns to be accepted and loved. And he's such a manipulative prick. That's why we say this cut trumps the original cut or the standard cut, because that scene alone, it's like, yeah, fuck this guy. Don't care.
Yeah, and that scene with Josh and the thesis is extended more. It just makes you
Yep.
despise him in that scene more too. Whew, fuck Christian, man. But Jack Rayner, props to him. He does a great job in that role. We're in the
And you know
sleeping
what's
quarter.
you know what's
Go
crazy,
ahead.
real quick about him is he did a great job in this movie. Name something else he's in. I know he was in the. I think he was in the Divergent movies, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe not, actually. Now that I'm looking at it, but he was in one of the Transformers movies, and yeah, he wasn't in Divergent. Who was someone else? And then he was in another A24 movie that I watched that I had a lot of fun with, Free Fire. But other than that, like, I'm actually surprised that he hasn't been in more stuff because he did a great job in this role.
I know he's got a pretty big podcast too, so he might be busy doing
Mm.
that. We're in the sleeping quarters, and Danny asks Josh for a sleeping pill. That night, she sees the group she's with gone from their beds, walking outside. She sees him driving away, leaving her behind while Mark mocks her. She screams, and carbon monoxide exits her mouth as we relive the Ada's stupid deaths and her family's deaths. Maya is awake and puts something under Christian's bed. Next day, Mark chats with Pele, and Josh is given permission to write his thesis, but he has to use aliases and can't disclose the location. He asks Pele what this is. It's a love rune. It casts a love spell. Christian finds out Pele's sister has a crush on him as Mark is scolded for peeing on the ancestral tree. Pele tells him it's important to them as the others grieve. His crush tells Pele she'll talk to Father Ulf. Christian approaches Danny, asking if she got good sleep. He kisses her, hugs her, and she apologizes again. He doesn't accept, but asks how she's feeling. They agree they don't want to fight. Connie walks into the sleeping quarters looking for Simon, and she's told Simon left with someone to go to the train station and they'll come pick her up later. There's only room for two in the truck, and she's furious. She says this is bullshit, crying and storming away. He tells Danny lunch is in a bit. I thought that was kind of funny, honestly. Danny tells Christian about Simon and Connie, and he says it's a dick move. He quickly transitions back to asking more questions about the community to Danny's dismay. She gives him a frustrated gaze and walks away. A group of ladies are cooking and they invite Danny to join them. The ladies are all supportive and encouraging to Danny as Maya walks by suspiciously with a meat pie. Josh is with an elder talking about the Ruby Rotter. Reuben is writing this edition. He draws and the elders interpret. He's sternly forbidden from taking pictures. Mark hears a woman scream, but is distracted by his crush. All right, Dustin, that's the next set of scenes. What do you think?
Yeah, waking up and seeing your boyfriend and the only people that you know here leaving, that would be panic inducing, especially when they drive right by you and clearly see you but keep driving. Talk about a nightmare. And we saw all of her trauma intertwined. That's a rough dream. I like how Astra does that. Like, there's a few times you mentioned it once already in the previous scene, but how she keeps having these like flashbacks or visions of her parents and sister. That's a great job to show that no matter what she's going through and she's on this quote unquote vacation, seeing all these neat, for lack of a better word, or interesting things happen, that trauma is always with her. But a worse nightmare than the one she actually had there, a stranger pissing on the ashes of your elders, like, that's the most tone deaf move of the movie. Mark pissing on that tree is insane. It couldn't have been that much closer for him to piss right there than to go to the toilet or at least the woods, which are right behind it. That tree's right there in the open too, moron. After that, Connie, she's got the right idea. Get the hell out of here expeditiously, and she has to figure something was off when her fella just left without her. I think I'd have just taken off hiking towards town. Um, I love how it was shot when Danny told Christian that Simon left and he just brushes it off. The camera focuses on her and then tightens towards her face. Really well done there, elite stuff. And then fair question by Josh, but very bold to ask about what happens if the Oracle or whatever they called him dies. I don't know, man. Probably just keep those questions inside. Like, what happens when this? And because he called him a disabled, like that's bold, my man. So it's really hard to not. I guess it's not hard to like these characters, but it's you understand why they all get what they get. I guess.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Dinner is ready and everyone is sitting at the table. Christian is served an oddly colored drink and Danny asks if anyone's seen
Ugh.
Connie. Mark says she saw her sprinting and someone tells her he drove her to the train station. Danny doesn't understand why Simon would leave without Connie. Christian says miscommunication, and Danny says, I could see you doing that. She shakes her head saying never mind when he asks, what's that mean? Mark gives a death stare as Josh asks about the ruby rider. Christian finds a pubic hair in his meat pie. It's super awkward at the table, and Christian takes a drink of that sketchy drink. Mark's crush asks him to come with her. Danny asks Josh for another sleeping pill, and they all lie down. Josh sneaks out and goes into the temple to take pictures of the ruby rider. Josh is busted by who he thinks is Mark until suddenly he's hit in the back of the head with a mallet. The man wearing Mark's face groans over until Josh is drug away. Next morning, Josh and Mark are both missing as an elder tells them the ruby rider was missing from the temple. Christian tells the elder they don't know where the other two are and just as confused as they are. Christian says Mark didn't do this, but Josh would have. He's not friends with him or collaborators. Pele goes to look for them as Danny is told she's going with the women for activity and Siv wants to see Christian. Some herbal tea is served to all the ladies dancing today. Danny is high now and sees grass growing through her feet. An elder speaks to them about dancing until they fall. The one who survives will be May Queen, and the music starts and they all begin dancing. All right, Dustin, that's the next set of scenes. What do you think?
Come on, son. Christian had to notice his drink looked different than everyone else's. Period blood drink and a puby pie. I'd kill everyone in this village. Fuck no. Mark cracked me up though when he stood up. He's like, "I'll be back. She's gonna show me." He didn't give a fuck what she was talking about. My man was just he was in. Uh, I don't know who's dumber though, him for pissing on the sacred tree or Josh for sneaking into the temple. This movie does a great job of showing Americans' ignorance and insensitivity towards others' cultures, and I guess arrogance as well, thinking that it'll be okay. Great shot in the window of quote unquote Mark walking in while he's looking at the book. But I'm not sure where Buddy with the mallet came from there. Like he hit Josh. There wasn't a door on that side of the room. I don't know. That was he just lurking in the shadows? I think Josh would have saw him. But
Randy
real
Orton.
scumbag out of nowhere. Uh, I would rather get hit with an RKO than a mallet though. Real scumbag move by Christian to tell the elders that they don't associate with them and they aren't friends. Like what a piece of shit. It's like like Tracy Lawrence said, you find out who your friends are. The choreography on the dance competition was fantastic. I love the design, the wardrobe, the camera work. It's all great. And then we get more of that great hallucination effects with the grass growing through Danny's feet. There's really solid stuff through and through.
Christian is in the room waiting on Siv, seeing the flaming bear picture on the wall. He's asked how he feels about Maya, and he's been approved to mate with her. She's fixed her hopes on him. She wanted him before he even arrived. Pele showed her pictures. He's told Danny will not know. I'm not proposing marriage. That wouldn't be approved. I'm asking if you care to mate with Maya. It's a one night offer. He's pitched on a unique glance at the culture and walks off. He sits with the others, watching the May Queen dance competition. Christian is offered some of the tea and is hesitant to drink it. He's scared of having a bad trip, but is reassured he won't. He looks at Maya and shoots a drink. Danny is dancing, high and tired looking. She begins speaking Swedish and laughs until she's the last one standing. She's crowned May Queen and celebrated by all the ladies. Christian is left by himself as the group congratulate her. She sees her mom in the crowd and is kissed by Pele. She's put on a pedestal and carried away, and we see her sisters outlined with the breathing mask in the trees beside them. They all stand at the dinner table until Danny sits down. The flowers pulsate on her chair as Christian sits down joining them. She's told she has to try and eat this fish whole. It's tradition. She must try but fails. Christian is high and tweaking. A toast is given in honor of their May Queen. Danny is told she's part of the family and they are sisters. Maya gets up from the table and gives Christian the come fuck me look. Danny watches Christian as we see Pele doing another sketch of her now as May Queen. Siv says now it's tradition for May Queen to bless their livestock and crops. She asks if Christian can join her. No, the Queen must ride alone. She's escorted to a carriage and pulled away. All right, Dustin, that's the next set of scenes. What do you think?
Yeah, Christian's talk with Civ, that's tense. Like, he thinks it's about Josh and Mark, but she's just trying to get him to impregnate a minor. Neither are great options. It's very alarming that he didn't immediately and firmly decline the offer, though. Back to the dance off, and I would have been eliminated early. Get me tripping balls and then ask me to run around in a circle. That's like asking me to puke for everyone and follow my face. I'll do that. When it got down to the final eight, I love how Astor showed the situation. Danny was excited, like she's proud of herself, and Christian couldn't care less. And you could see it on her face. That upset her. She turned into Michael Jordan in the last dance. It became personal to her. No way she loses now. Danny winning, though, had to be intentional, right? Like, this community clearly took a strong liking towards her. She longs for acceptance and family. They targeted her and preyed on her, right? Like, Pele kissing her sealed it for me. He clearly had designs on her for a while. He wants her to move to his village and be a part of the family. Her winning was a hell of a recruiting pitch. In addition to that, that has to be the reason Christian was targeted too, right? Like, get him to cheat on Danny so she'd leave him and eventually off him. They're smart. I get it. Uh, I know what I said about Americans and traditions of other cultures, but two things I draw the line on: impregnating a minor and eating a raw fish whole. Hell no. I mean, obviously the period blood cocktail and pubic pie, those two, but those weren't presented as an option. They were just forced on him. So I think that's where I would draw the line and say, no, I'm good.
Yeah, this is a fucked up movie. Flower petals are sprinkled on the ground to Christian, and he's led to the room with Maya and the elder women. The women pour grains, meat, and break an egg in the ground and is covered by Danny by dirt. She's told to repeat what she hears to bless their crops and livestock. Christian is in a robe and is given more drugs by two elder men. Christian enters the room and sees Maya naked in a bed of flowers with a line of women naked, arm to arm, humming. Christian begins having sex with her until a woman grabs Maya's hand, comforting her. He appears shocked, but continues having sex. The women begin mimicking Maya's moans as the carriage is brought back to the commune. Danny hears a sex session and is told it's not for them. She disregards the warning and walks over and sees through the keyhole Christian having sex with Maya. She's devastated and vomits. The women escort her to the sleeping quarters and comfort her. Danny begins crying violently and they mimic her cries and screams, showing her great empathy. Cut back to Christian having sex with Maya, and an elder woman is aiding him by pushing on his butt cheeks as he thrusts. A line that I used in the first one, and I had to repeat it. Maya says she feels the baby rocking back and forth. Christian runs outside, bloody dick swinging, finding Josh's leg in a garden. He makes it into a barn, finding Simon still alive and barely breathing, just praying to a God he don't believe in blood eagle fashion. An elder blows powder into his face that paralyzes him. His eyes are closed manually, with what I think is a really cool camera shot.
Yeah. Christian was tripping his nuts off, man. When Buddy clapped in his face, he almost cried. And then look at him get up from the table and the way he walked. He was down bad. Dog was taken advantage of. He was in no shape to consent to anything. So I do agree he shouldn't have put himself in that situation, but he didn't know what the fuck he was doing in that room. My only gripe with any costume design in the entire movie is the guy at the door here. It looked like he just had a mop head over his face. Like, they went to the dollar store, bought a mop, cut it off, and that was his mask. There had to be a better look they could have went with, but then again, maybe that's culturally accurate. I don't know. And it leads to perhaps the most uncomfortable sex scene I've ever seen in a movie. Christian get it on with a 16-year-old, while a dozen naked Swedish women of various body types sing and watch 3 feet away. So awkward. Thank God the actress who played Maya was actually 22 when this movie was made, because that could have been really uncomfortable. Um, really dirty move for them to have Danny arrive back where she did, when she did, so she could hear the chanting and find Christian. All a part of their plan. They want to keep her. And as if the sex scene couldn't get any more awkward, assisted humping. Wow. Danny running outside naked with his bloody dick dangling. That's something else I could have went without seeing. I mean, I guess it's effective, but didn't really want to see it. You could have just implied it. But it leads to some major revelations. He finds Josh's foot planted in the soil. He finds Simon strung up and filleted. Shit's going down. We're in for a hell of a finish.
Honestly, I give Jack Rayner props. I mean, did I want to see his bloody dick swinging? No, not really. But he took a stand. He said women are always naked in horror movies, and kind of left out there in the open and vulnerable. And he said it's time for a guy to do it. So he ran out
Yeah.
bloody dick swinging. I give him props for it. I mean, it takes a lot of courage for a guy to do that, honestly. So
Yeah,
I'm
it does. I
I
would have
wouldn't
wanted
do
a
it.
stunt double. Yeah, I would want a dick double.
Yeah. Where's that one from Sleepaway Camp? All right, anywho. All right, here's the finale. Christian is awakened and is told he can't speak or move. God damn, man. Today is a day of reciprocity. 9 human lives are sacrificed. Ingmar and Ulf are volunteering their lives to Hargo. Pele is being honored for his unclouded intuition. May Queen Danny will be picking the 9th person to sacrifice, either Christian or Tubion. Zoom in on Danny's face as she begins crying. We see the corpses of Josh, Mark, Simon, and Connie being taken to the Yellow Temple. We see an elder teaching youth how to disembowel a bear as Christian sits in the corner. Christian is now in the bearskin, sitting in the Yellow Temple to be sacrificed. Ulf and Ingmar are given a drug to take away their pain and fear. The place is set on fire. Harmonious music plays as the bear suit ignites, and we hear screams of agony from Ulf and Ingmar. Them pain drugs didn't work worth a fuck, boy. The cult all mimic the screams they hear as Danny begins coughing, panicking, and crying, witnessing it all. She stops when she sees the other members and begins to smile as the camera zooms in on her face. All right, Dustin, that's the finale. A hell of a lot happens. What do you think?
Yeah, so talk about terrifying. All that shit you just saw, and then you wake up being told you can't speak or move. You have to just accept that it is Jover. And the revelation that they were in fact brought as sacrifices. That's tough. Christian had to know that he was fucked right there. Zero shot Danny lets him live after the hell he's put her through. Not just on this trip, but just in general. Surely to God, she's realized it by now and it's like, yep, he's done. Plus, he's paralyzed now, so honestly, death would probably be a relief. Finding out why the bear was in the cage earlier, that's another crazy development. The bear suit is incredible. Uh, Such a terrifying yet serene ending. And seeing Danny be so stoic, like she's in shock. She's not really processing what's happening, I don't think. And then the score becomes so powerful. Then all the locals start wigging out, and we see Danny start to move and then show some joy. Just an incredible ending to an incredible film.
Yeah, man, I agree. Let's jump into our social media comments and questions. I'll do Instagram first. Jordan Zeger. Let us know how you say your last name. Is Zeger or Zeger? I don't want to. I don't want to butcher that. She said, "I love
Shout
this
out Jay
movie."
Z.
Jay Z. I love this movie. I definitely have to prepare myself to watch it most times, though. Personally, I feel like everything up until they leave for Sweden is equally terrifying if I put myself in Danny's shoes. Plus, Florence Pugh's emotional portrayal of it all really gets me. She's amazing. She is amazing. I agree 100%. We'll jump over to the Book of Faces now. Cheyenne Turner commented, Midsommar is a beautiful movie, well acted. I can see why there are people that love it. For me, honestly, I will probably never watch it again. Guess I just love my dumb slashers, lol. Hey, I respect that opinion. No hate at all from me. I get it. I can understand if somebody don't like this movie. And we got one more
Yeah.
comment on the Book of Faces. This has made it into this is from Abby Renee. Sorry about that. This has made it into my top 10 films of all time. It may be a hot take, but I've watched it numerous times. It is so beautifully shot, and Florence Pugh is absolutely amazing. You catch something new with every watch. I definitely understand though why it's a one and done for most people. I agree. I get it.
Yeah. We got one on X, the artist formerly known as Twitter. Elijah Trombone said, haven't seen, but the regular cut is great. It feels like a fresh, modern take on The Wicker Man original, not Nick Cage. And then Nico commented, definitely need to pick the director's cut if you ever can. It fleshes out some scenes and it makes Christian so much worse. Completely agree there. I'll go ahead and do the budget. This movie had a $9 million estimated budget. Opening weekend almost got that back, 6.5 million, but it went on to gross worldwide 48,015,416 at the box office.
We got to get those numbers up. This movie
Yeah,
deserved more.
absolutely.
Good.
Keep releasing the director's cut A24 because Nico and I will go see it every time if no one else will.
Except Bo is afraid. I don't even want to imagine what could be in that director's cut.
Yeah,
4 hours and it's another hour of more outlandish stuff. I don't know if I can handle it, man. All right,
yeah.
I'm gonna.
A 30 minute scene cut with more attic dick. We'll
Yeah,
see it.
I'm gonna read a few fun facts. I'm sure we probably read these off in the first one, but hell, why not? That was over 200 episodes ago. When the film was released in Sweden, rather than eliciting fear in the audience, many people laughed. Many Swedish critics praised the film as an excellent black comedy. I get that. All right, I
Yeah.
got a couple more. Most of the Swedish dialogue spoken by the Harga natives is deliberately not subtitled in order to create the sense of isolation for the audience and especially for the foreign visitors. That's something they do so well. Uh, yeah, because when you can't understand what people are talking about, you just feel so uncomfortable. Like it's super
Hmm.
scary. And the last one I'm going to read is, despite the sweetest setting, the film was mostly shot in Hungary.
All right, I'm just going to read one. I took a few, but if you want to hear more fun facts, we discussed quite a few on our original episode, if I remember correctly. Like I said, I don't remember that episode at all. But the one that stood out to me was directly related to what we just covered. So this film was originally given an NC-17 by the MPAA, and according to Ari Aster, around 30 minutes was cut from the final film, mainly due to content. The director's cut, released shortly after its theatrical run, restores this footage. So that's what we just covered. That's insane to me. The stuff left in was so much worse than what they cut. Nothing that they
Yeah,
cut was bad. Like,
yeah,
I don't. How did the MPAA rewatch it after they cut the scenes that were cut and be like, "Oh yeah, this is so much better, so much less graphic"? Like, what? That makes no sense.
yeah. The stuff that was cut definitely wasn't anything like the cliff scene,
Yeah, yeah. The cliff scene and or the
the bear
bloody
scene,
dick, the group
bloody
sex
dick.
scene. Like, there's so much stuff. And I do have one more fun little tidbit. So Florence Pugh, who I cannot say enough great things about, she was in a little movie that you may have heard of called Oppenheimer with Jack Quaid. He was in who what was that movie? Oh, Just Before I Go, and David Arquette was in that. So there you go.
Jack Quaid was also in Scream 5 with David Arquette.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Hell yeah.
I got one in there too. All right, let's jump into our favorite kill, least favorite kill, and the rating. I honestly don't remember what my favorite and least favorite were, and I just listened to the episode again yesterday. Shows you how forgetful I'm getting these days. My favorite kill, I'm still going to go with Christian. There's a lot of good kills, but man, that bear suit, man, that's just iconic. But you could have easily picked those cliff diving scenes, man. They're so
Yeah.
memorable. Least favorite kill, I'm just going to go with Mark. You don't see it,
Yeah.
you just see his face. You see, but I don't really have a problem if you say there's no least favorite kill. Like if you watch the dead meat kill count, he doesn't pick a least favorite kill because they're all important to the plot, and I get that, but I'll stick to our gimmick and I'll just go with Mark. Listen, I gave this movie a 9.5 over 200 episodes ago. Back in 2021, it's over 3 years later, or almost 3 years later. I love this movie. Seeing it in IMAX just made it hit so much different for me. I don't know if Dustin's a huge fan of the IMAX or if it makes that much difference to him, but just seeing how beautiful this movie was shot, the colors, like when you see it on that IMAX screen, like when you zoom in on Danny sitting in that chair at the dinner table, and you can see all those flowers pulsating, you can see the sky behind her, kind of like squiggling. Dude, it makes you feel like you're high with her. I think the acting is phenomenal. The movie, no matter how many times you see it, just makes you feel so unsettled. The director's cut makes you hate Christian more. It fleshes out Danny's final decision even more to where you understand and you don't feel as sorry for Christian. Like, yeah, he was a bad boyfriend, but did he deserve to die? I don't know, man. He was kind of a terrible person. I
Yeah.
can't fault her for saying that. But I'll stop here. I think the movie is phenomenal. If we ever do an A24 horror movie ranking like in October for like a 31 kind of event, Midsommar is going to be very high on the list. I don't know if it's going to be my number one because I know Dustin had it number one in his ranking. It would be right up there with Pearl and The Lighthouse for me. But I'm giving this movie a 10 out of 10. It's phenomenal. It's not the most rewatchable movie, but I can't find any flaws with it when I do want to watch it.
Yeah. So kills are tough on this one because they're all great, serve a purpose. I too went with Mark as my least favorite just because we didn't really see it happen, and then we just see someone wearing his face like a mask, and then we see his face in the sacrificial fire later. Favorite kill, I went with the old man that jumped off the cliff just because
Oof.
they're both great, but that mallet shot to the head took it over the top, and we get multiple looks at it. So really wild stuff there. I gave the standard cut of this movie a 9, which is very high by my standards. Like my nines, most people's tens, I feel like. But this one goes more in depth with key moments, really cranks up the emotions even more. I gave the director's cut a 9.75. It's a near perfect film to me. So betwixt the two of us, that's a composite of 9.875. We're going to go with this as the official stance on Midsommar from this podcast.
Hell yeah, brother. 9.875. Let's go. Ari Aster, you are a fucked up individual, but you make some good movies.
Yeah. Yeah, I've said it before and I'll say it again. His brain needs to be studied when he passes because there is something off. And I did want to mention also, you touched on the A24 rankings. Yeah, I did. I have Midsommar as my number one A24 horror movie. And if we're talking just all A24, let me pull up that list because this is considering every movie that they've made. I have, where
Before
is it
you
at?
before you say it, can I
Yep.
guess what might be above it?
Yes, because this is actually sixth for me.
Okay, it's number 6. I'm gonna say Iron Claws above it.
It is. That's number two.
Moonlight.
That's number one.
I'm gonna
That
guess
movie is a
Nate.
10. That Moonlight is a 10. It's no director's cut needed. That movie's perfect. So,
I need to watch
yep,
that one. I'm gonna say maybe Uncut Gems.
that's number three to me.
I can't think of any other, but I knew those 3 would probably be above it.
Yeah, you haven't seen the other two, I don't believe, because we've talked about it. But number four is Eighth Grade.
Oh
Eighth Grade
yeah,
is such a it's such an emotional movie about a girl who's in eighth grade just wanting to fit in. And it's written by Bo Burnham, of all people, a comedian, and he crushes it. It's a great movie. And number five for me is The Spectacular Now. Miles Teller, one of my favorite actors. But really, 6 through 3 interchangeable. 1 and 2 are pretty set in stone for me. Moonlight and the Iron Claw.
dude, Iron Claw is such a good movie. I need
Yeah,
to watch Moonlight. I've heard everybody I've seen talk about it say how good Moonlight is. I definitely
it,
need to
it,
watch that one.
it's so good, and there's Florida State ties there. The filmmakers graduates of Florida State University, and that's honestly why I watched it. This was way before I knew what A24 was. That was the first A24 movie I watched, and it set the bar incredibly high.
Nice, Dustin. You got any final thoughts on Midsommar before we get out of here?
No, well, just a couple. Support cinema, even if it's a movie you've seen. If it's a movie like this and it's playing in the theater, go watch it. And the only other thing I have is Florence Pugh. Check your DMs.
There you go.